This podcast is brought to you by Guiding Growing Minds, a social enterprise that aims to give all children the best opportunity to reach their potential and succeed in living rich and meaningful lives.
Well, that's a wrap, Dr. Billy Garvey, on episode 97. It's our second part episode on resilience. What are people going to learn this week?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's the most I've cried on air, and that's saying something. But, it's amazing, amazing questions. As we always say, beautiful vulnerability, beautiful guidance, beautiful ways to make the podcast better, advice from people, stories, and hopefully some helpful guidance from us as well.
Billy, I stopped the episode halfway through. I never stop an episode, and I told you this is the best episode I reckon you've done. Particularly
we've done.
The first half was obviously where we're at, and then it's a huge second half. I'm not trying to sell the episode. It is an absolute cracker. Guys, I really hope you enjoy the episode. It's a belter. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Billy, a developmental paediatrician. And I'm Nick, a developing parent. We're going to use scenes from iconic movies to talk about how we best support our kids. This is Pop Culture Parenting.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.
Oh, classic start this morning, Dr. Billy Garvey. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. They're nice. Just make sure, Billy, you're recording, and I'm not recording on anything.
We have
to do another check.
We have this thing. I think if there's new listeners, we have this thing. Billy and I started the podcast about 3.5 years ago, technically, even though we just came up to 3 years of released episodes.
Yes.
We sat in the cold depths of July in this back bungalow, and we recorded something one day, and we thought it was going to win an Oscar and an Emmy and a potty. We're still waiting for those awards. And I forgot to hit record. So I have this paranoia as we go live. And I turned to Billy just before we started this one. I said, we're recording on both. And he goes, we're recording nothing. And I was like, God.
And it was probably the best advice we've ever given.
Yeah, well, it's like we missed the...
It's like the Library of Alexandria.
Oh,
it's lost.
It's gone. Library of Alexandria. Oh, God. That is some comparison, mate.
Anyway, I might be stretching a bit.
Reaching.
Mate, I'll tell you what, it's good to see you because what a chaotic morning, chaotic fortnight. Yeah, hair's on fire. We'll talk about it.
It's been on fire.
Someone
for 40
said
years.
We didn't include it in the shorts because there was, I think, over 1,000 of them. But what's the difference between persistence and resilience? And I'm in just persisting and getting through at the moment.
You are persistent.
Yes, and I am persistent.
So. We are here, though, Billy, Dr. Billy, I should say, for part 2 on resilience. Over 1,000 questions.
Yes.
It is getting to the point of...
Well, it's getting to the point where, reading all of them is going to be a little bit challenging. And but I still... this one was probably, I got some of the hardest questions. I got some questions that we had some stuff come through that I need to keep to myself
Gotcha.
because of how much people are struggling.
Yep.
And it just means, it means a lot to me that even, I hear what everyone's saying, I hear what everyone's going through, and it's a real privilege to get all that coming in, and that even if the question doesn't get read out, it still is in my mind and how I answer the questions. And
also probably how you're going to help people in the future.
Yeah, all the future stuff, definitely. But there's a lot that we're going to talk about today. But I'll blend it in with some of the stuff that came through. But I hear you. I hear a lot of myself and see a lot of myself in the people that are really in the depths of struggling at the moment with what's happening in the world and their lives.
Yep. All right.
But there is hope, uplifting, and that's what we're going to talk about.
Yes.
We're going to dive deeper.
I know. There's some ripping questions this week.
Yes.
I don't know. This part, I think one of my favourite topics we've done.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You did,
just in recall, I've loved it.
Yeah, you did love it, didn't you? Yeah, because I think this is your sweet spot. I reckon I survive. I think you... No, but you're very good at this, and it's not by accident. You do it purposely. You invest in it. We'll talk about this.
I feel guilty.
I don't feel... God, why do you feel guilty? Mate, you're guiding us. You're guiding the rest of us. So you're putting it to good use. So
Anyway, can we go to the polls?
Yeah, let's do polls.
Okay, so these are the polls that take place on Instagram. If you haven't participated in one before, please participate in one in the future. Follow us on Insta so you can participate in these polls.
And quick apology if some people find the questions difficult to read. There's a character limit that I struggle with every single... I was on the tarmac on a plane putting that poll together. So that's why they're a bit difficult to read. But first question. And
First question, Billy.
Than I wrote on there.
Were you ever told it will toughen you up during tough times? 85% said yes.
Yeah. What do you got for that?
Iron sharpens iron, that sort of thing. Yeah, no.
Did you hear that?
Not a lot. Not a lot, to be honest. I didn't get told to toughen up a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I'm not very tough.
No way.
This won't work on him.
No, you just got beautiful, you got a beautiful family, and it's not saying mine aren't. I heard that it'll toughen you up a fair bit. I heard it a lot, just in that, everyone that was around me, and we've got a beautiful long question on it actually, where someone sent in that's not a parent or working with kids yet, but about just themselves getting through that stuff. So
Yeah.
So we'll go deeper on that.
Yeah. Awesome. Love that one. All right, Billy. 85% of people said yes.
Yeah. No, you did say it. But
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Okay. Did you make it through growing up with healthy resilience? Half of the audience, just over half at 55%, said no. They did not grow up with healthy resilience.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't. So I was no. What about you?
Yeah, I actually just think, I don't know, I did, which is probably, 55%, you did, I did. I don't know, I just felt like, I don't know, it was healthy enough.
Yeah.
Enough challenge, being the youngest of 5 children, but I was also mollycoddled as the little last one. Everyone.
Yeah, but do you think you're too softly?
No, I don't know.
I don't think so.
No, not too softly.
Yeah.
Hey, Billy. We asked people, do you worry about your kid's mental health in the future? 97% of people said yes.
Yeah, hats off to those 3% of people, which is hundreds of people in that poll. But I really worry about these. And this is, I worry about it for both of them now because I'm starting to really see who Charlie is. And I really worry about that.
Can I say, I don't think I sit in the 3%. But I am putting a lot of faith and not pressure in this podcast. I think this is really good in helping me. Okay?
Mate, the most valuable thing about...
You've got to know that.
Yeah.
I was worried, which is why I'm in a podcast. But I have a lot of faith in what you're doing.
Yeah, it's funny,
Hope
mate.
that's helpful.
You're not getting emotional right off the bat. But
sorry, but...
Yeah, mate, you won't understand this, but I get more from you than you get from me because, you are here, mate. You are the person that's doing it and living it, and you are so good to me and to the PCP community sharing that story, but also you're the translator. I'm just talking about all the evidence, everything I do in clinic and how I think about it with my own kids, but you've got a beautiful way of applying it, and... That's why this works. This podcast, the best thing about the podcast is the community that listens to it.
100%.
And we've become a smaller and smaller part of it, which is beautiful.
Less and less, yep.
The two things, I don't know about you, the two things I'm really proud of is the podcast community and the Guiding Grown Ones board. Those are two things that I look at in my life and think I'm really proud that I have them around me and I'm a part of it. And
amazing
this podcast
tangible things, Billy.
Yeah, and this podcast has actually worked because of you, because you are so genuine. No, but media can't do that. There's all these people that's let's make a podcast or put these two funny people together and all that stuff, and it doesn't work. They've come and gone in our time because of you. You are genuinely here. And I think the listeners are wasting airtime a bit because I think they know that and feel that. But sometimes we sit here for an hour or so afterwards and you take notes and we go deeper into stuff. You're applying this more than I am. Yeah, but I don't know. We'll move on. I don't want to waste, but Billy, I see the way you do it. Watching you parent is amazing because you're just you are you. Anyway, I don't want to. No. I just get emotional about it because sometimes I think it's the most important thing that I will do, and without sounding arrogant, I think I'm good at it.
Yeah.
But I think it's because I have sensitivity in me, and
Yeah, I think
this
that's
is
the
my
reason.
training. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I do this every day. I was so overwhelmed yesterday leaving clinic. I just really tough kids that are having a hard time, and I'll share some of their stories.
Yeah.
Like the behavior clinic was yesterday morning, and it's like, yeah, and I just feel so privileged, but I feel like I hold so much for those kids because, yeah, but I'm choosing to, and I have responsibility for that, but I care about it so much. And then there's other bits though that I worry about as a partner, I worry about as a friend, I worry about those things that I'm actually not good at, and that's the vulnerability, is that I don't have balance in anything. You know what I mean? I'm my hair's on fire. I was running at 6 a.m. this morning, a dog, and just then having meetings with people in the state. You know what I mean? I'm just people would look at what I do and go, that is so stupid to be doing that much. But, this is just, my heart is in it so much that I can't actually not do it. Because of how much it means to me. But yeah, mate, it has been it's been such a privilege watching this journey with you because of how much you care about it. And you are the version of all of us that's out there trying to get better at it.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing.
Trying to.
Anyway, this will be a 3 hour.
Sorry, people watching on YouTube, I started smirking when you said something like, my hair's on fire. I'm like, both of our hair is on fire. I've been told that for a long time.
Yeah, totally.
We're redheads if you're listening by the podcast. So I just feel hands on. I'm like,
yeah.
We've both been told that. Sorry. Hey, Billy, let's get into some feedback. Keep pushing.
Yeah, do you want to take it in turns?
What a start. Yeah. Okay, you're going to do odds because I love even numbers.
Okay, so you want me to start?
Hang on. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
No, I'll do it because this first one doesn't make sense to do it that way.
Okay.
This is where we ask people for feedback, by the way, because we love feedback. It helps us get better at this
And
stuff.
God, it's hard if people feel like there's too much questions and feedback and stuff. I just could not cut it last night. I couldn't cut it down shorter than this.
Hi, doctors. This podcast is actually the best. I've been an early childhood teacher for 15 years and a mum for 18 months. I spent the last 15 years thinking, I know children, but my toddler has quickly and beautifully shown me I know nothing, especially about parenting. I'm a solo mum by choice, and I know my little one is going to face some tricky stages as a donor-conceived child in the future. She will know her story, as I always have, and will share with her age-appropriate information. I know parts of her story into our everyday language. I build parts of our story into our everyday language. I am so aware of her story being different to a lot of her peers that I feel extra pressure not to royally F it up in all other areas. I feel like I don't have any wriggle room. Okay, yeah. Okay, so it's I mean, it's easy for me to say, but anyway, I'll just keep reading the questions, stop adding stuff. I'm a big believer in taking my child's lead when appropriate. I feel like I'm very in tune with her. I see her. I love being her mum so much. I don't always get it right. I get tired and frustrated and feel like I say sorry to her for being a moody or tired mummy more than I'd like. I'm sure every parent's hope is that our children grow up to be happy, confident, love themselves and know who they are, and I just want to get all that right. In a world of perceived perfection, your Winslows and Griswolds really help peel back the curtain and let us see that we are all trying to do our best, and sometimes things don't go to plan. It's what we do next that matters in those moments. Thank you so much for everything that both of you do and share. You're the best. Also, I realised I was a bigger fan than I thought I was when last week someone told me they saw Dr. Billy Garvey chatting to someone outside the forum I was at in Geelong. When I tell you I leapt out of my chair and ran down the stairs to say hi, only to find it wasn't Billy at all. Big fan, haha.
I actually honestly meant to cut that last bit out. But
So I was like, you can't read this question, mate. Sorry.
I meant to cut that out. But yeah, and it's, just something to say as well very quickly. I don't really like Dr. Billy. I just like Billy.
Nah. Oh, sorry. I mean, yes.
Yeah. But no, so if anyone says
it.
hi to me, just say Billy. And I love people saying
If anyone
hi to me.
says hi to me, Dr. Nick's just fine. Go.
All right. Hey, guys. Not a question as much of a thanks, really, for the work you do for the wider community and people globally. I have an amazing daughter, 7 years old, with autism and a PDA profile. Your most recent episode was excellent, but more than anything else, the anecdote about the hypermasculine dad really resonated with me. I'm not hypermasculine, but the patterns felt similar. It feels like forever since I enjoyed my daughter. She can be incredibly hard work, and while I try hard to be an authoritative parent, when my patient wears thin, I quickly switch into authoritarian. Telling the dad from your story that he needs to really just bring warmth in a big way and consistently made me realise that's what I needed to do. Even in the short time since your episode released, I've practiced really hard and I've already started noticing a positive change. I know the road ahead is long and bumpy, or should I say the tunnel ahead is long and filled with sewerage like Shawshank. And it's going to take a long time, but thank you from the bottom of my heart for being there on the other side of the world, guiding me through being a better parent. Lots of love from me, my wife, my daughter, and our improving relationship. Keep crushing it. Amazing, those guys are in the UK.
Oh, awesome. Brilliant. I'm going to keep us going. Hi, Nick and Dr. Billy. Just writing to say thanks for creating an amazing podcast. It's been amazing to assist in learning how to be a better parent. You can skip the rest of the email. This is a bit of a tangent on the resilience topic. As background, my now 5-year-old has had some social anxiety issues, like running away from kids when we took him to playgrounds. And we found out at the end of last year that he really wasn't participating much in daycare or kindy, just standing in the corner. We've been working on it, and we got an OT to assist with teaching him to play skills, and found an amazing kindy that we'll do another year at before starting prep. We've made so much progress. Hearing Nick talk about his daughter wanting to cross a pedestrian crossing first brought this to mind. Bit random, but the first time we tried him on a pedal bicycle from a balance bike, I heard him say to himself, "I can do this," after falling off. Oh, really amazing to hear him speak like that to himself. I've ridden with him on a bicycle a lot. From there, it didn't take long before he wanted to ride all the way to kindy himself. First time I tried riding to kindy with him on his own bicycle didn't go well. We have to cross a busy road at a set of lights. He panicked because I was walking slightly ahead and then ran across with the bicycle and hit the gutter. The handlebar flicked up and hit him in the eye. Whilst trying to help him off the road, I put my 2-year-old down, who then proceeded to leg it. Fun times. I don't generally pay attention to local politics, but that night I also saw comments from the Lord Mayor in Brisbane about the pedestrian crossings being downgrades, and who would ever get on a bicycle. Kind of triggered me. I thought I was doing a good thing helping my son to ride to kindy to build his self-confidence. We talk a lot about teachers and healthcare workers, but just a local council prioritising building a safe footpath to kindy and schools can help build that confidence and resilience in kids, in my mind. I can see it in my own son as we've continued to ride there and seeing the building of confidence. Although there are times I've questioned if I shouldn't just drive there, but it is nice to be building that connection between us, even if the trip takes a bit longer sometimes. Anyway, I wasn't going to write this. Seems irrelevant compared to some of the feedback you'll get on resilience. All the best. Thanks for the podcast.
Amazing, yeah. And it's not what you think, you're right. There is strong evidence about it protects adult mental health as well, actually, but kids' mental health, exercise, being outside, sunlight, physical challenges that we overcome, all that stuff. So it's beautiful. Okay, 4. Hey, I need to send you a note to say thank you. A heartfelt, deep, gratuitous thank you for being a lifeboat in this deep ocean of parenting. My little boy is 4 and is a late talker. He's only just putting words together, but most of the time it's not close to English. This speech delay road is a strange one to be on, because usually with help and understanding, life gets easier. However, this seems to get harder. Every year since he was 2, his birthday is shadowed by the realisation we've got another year where he's unable to express how he's feeling, what he did at preschool, whether he had a hard day, or even what he'd like for dinner. It's still guesswork and big reaction when I fail to understand him. There are many emotions tied to our relationship: unconditional love, unconditional support, happiness, excitement, and some not so fun emotions, huge sadness, a sense of failure, and shame. A lot of the latter emotions are generated when I simply don't know how to understand or address a situation. On the days he's looking up at me, trying to use his little hands to sign and repeat the noises so patiently, but getting frustrated when no one seems to understand what he's saying, are the absolute worst. Listening to your podcast, I found a way to make almost every single communication between us a positive and warm experience. The self-esteem episode guided me towards finding something he's good at, farming, balance bikes and baking. So that's what we do together as much as we can. In one of the episodes, you spoke of reducing demand and increasing support. You have no idea what a lifesaver those 5 words have been. Through the Cultivating Courage and Kids Who Are Different episodes, I was able to start parenting in a way that I'm really proud of. I was actually sleeping through the night again as I found that magic word you spoke about in the Parents' Mental Health episode, contentment. I still have grizzy, heavy days, but I can hand in heart say that since listening to PCP, the Winslows are outweighing the Griswolds. So thank you.
What a ripper. It is a tough road. I caught that earlier, them saying that. That sounds like a really tough road, so good on them. Hey, Nick and Billy, love the podcast. I'm a huge fan. Lol. My daughter, 19, moved out in March this year after we had a big argument with tension simmering for weeks under the surface. A week before the argument, I had broken my ankle and found myself needing an operation and being separated, suddenly heavily reliant on intermittent help from others, including my daughter, who was still going 1 week on, 1 week off with her dad. Unfortunately, I did not know about your podcast at the time and didn't understand that my daughter was signalling very strongly that she needed support and for me to examine my approach. My own needs at the time were overwhelming, and it was the it's the biggest Griswold of all time. I did not see that maybe what she needed was connection. I was overwhelmed by the situation as well, as I had always been very independent. I have struggled to stop shaming myself for my words in the interaction in the long, quiet months that slowly ticked by since that eruption. She didn't contact me for months and would not see me on Mother's Day, something that broke my heart into tiny little pieces. The bigger the rift, the bigger the need for repair, and it was a very long, slow road back. Since finding your podcast, I've gone back and listened to every episode as time allows. It doesn't matter that my kids are older. My bids for connection with my daughter have been numerous and only partly successful, but I gently persist. She now comes to dinner once a week, and I thought we had turned a corner when she agreed to drop in on Saturday afternoon before her work shift started. She didn't show up, and I didn't get a call or a text. Before the podcast, I would have felt insulted and would have reacted by escalating. She did try to call and left me a voice message, but that only came through at 1:30 a.m. Instead, I thought about what she needed in the moment and decided to message her this morning and point out the good things that she did, that she'd reliably contacted me to let me know what was going on and was honest as to the reason of why and was genuine in her tone. I asked questions about her work shift and we had a text conversation, a rare engagement from her. Anyway, I just wanted to say well done for both of you. Made a huge difference to our little family. I'm hoping that generational patterns of estrangement on both sides of my daughter's family can be avoided. I could go on, but really just wanted to say thanks. Your pod has helped me recognise and acknowledge where I did go right, although I selfishly wish the pod was around 20 years ago, and it is helping me reparent my inner child. Thanks. Thank you says too little, but it's all I have.
That's all you need.
I
never understand how much you fuel me by sending those things in.
That's amazing.
What a phenomenal parent.
Amazing. It's
I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but like, I'm sitting here with the oldest of our 4 kids at 6, and I'm like, I hope that the podcast can impact people a bit older. Like, we try not to make it just about little kids, like really deliberately, and to hear that, I don't know, it's nice to hear that someone who's got older kids is using the podcast.
Yeah, totally. Because I only have lived experience of younger kids, both of us do, and lived experience is just as if not important than the expertise. But I'm really fortunate that I get to meet a lot of amazing teens, and some of them might come.
Yeah, I forget that with you. Like I'm like, oh, little kids. I know little kids. I'm like, yeah, forget you work with teenagers all day. Like, I don't run into them.
Yeah, totally. And
I
there's some of my favourite people to meet actually in my work, because the gain is so big. Teenagers are really struggling at the moment, you know, probably disproportionately because of everything that's happening, more so than anyone else. And it's, it's a beautiful thing to journey with those kids. I love it.
Awesome. All right, guys, if you're a first-time listener, this is where we belt through the shorts. We've got a lot of shorts to get through today, and I'm pumped about that. I actually really love the shorts. I really love the shorts. I love the longs because of the tails.
Okay, wow.
But I love the shorts.
Okay.
Don't know. Maybe it's my goldfish memory. I like short, digestible, snackable.
Yeah.
Anyway,
maybe
Billy.
It keeps me tight as well.
Yeah, I know. Today. Let's rip in. Hey, now that you're doing a live show, does that mean you guys are rock stars? I'll answer this one. I don't know. Maybe.
It's funny because, so it sold out like 2 hours, but we've also, within 24 hours, I think there was over 200 people on the wait list. So we're going to try and get to everyone. I'm very angry yesterday because I missed out on tickets to the Laneway Festival. For Annalise and I made the mistake of visualing myself there. I was like, it'd be great dancing. Like, I love music festivals. And I was so annoyed that I missed out. But so feel all those people. But if it works, and I've got some really ideas that you've given the green light to, so fun for the live.
Feels like an amber light to me, mate.
But yeah, so it's so exciting.
It is so exciting. In just one sentence, can you explain resilience? My kids only listen to the first 10 words max.
Do you want to have a shot at that? Or?
No, because all I'm going to do is big M and no. You do it. Oh, I feel bad because I would revert to...
It's nice to reflect on it with courage. Okay. What's courage?
Acting even when you're scared.
Yeah. So what's resilience?
Being able to, I don't know.
Yeah, having like a healthy mechanism to respond to stress and negativity. Okay. You know, but it's similar. I think it's easy for me in my head to go, what's courage again? Because I think that's the mistake that we make is resilience is just, you know, you've got it because you're that type of person or it's a trait, but it's a process just like courage where you have to experience stress and negativity or encourage fear and you still need to move forward, but move forward well. And that's,
yeah, okay. It's good.
And that's why I'm in persistence, which is not moving forward well. I'm not in resilience most of the time.
Dogged persistence.
Yeah. I'm just like get through and we'll come to it in one of the ones that's coming.
Cool. As we heal from our trauma, does our resilience shift in triggering situations?
Yeah, definitely. But it's a really good point actually because we still get triggered and I can be resilient about certain things, but that wound will always be with me about those certain things, such as relationships. You know, I might be able to go, well, I've learned to trust people again, but when I feel like that trust is faltering or that I'm going to be abandoned or something like that, I know that I'm vulnerable to slipping into my unhealthy coping mechanisms of avoidance, overcompensation, shutting down, all of those things, big reactions. So that sensitivity, I think, will always be with me.
Can we only acquire resilience through adversity and trauma?
So great question, and I think I probably should have framed it better about how we support kids because we know that a lot of the stuff we talked about can be put in, you know, Emmy Werner, who did it with all those, who built all the resilience evidence initially, saw that, you know, the big M stuff was present prior to a lot of the adversity and trauma in some of those kids. So it is a protective mechanism as well. But the true test of it, just like the true test of courage is fear, the true test of genuine resilience is having gone through the adversity and then coming out the other side. So that's why I like the uniform, like let's just teach every kid deep breathing or some exercise.
Gotcha.
It doesn't pass that test.
Yeah, the test.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We don't, like I've said a lot of times, we don't need to trip kids. We know that almost all of us will experience like traumatic, significant adversity in our life course. But the true resilience is proven through that, and we are not strong though because of the adversity. That's the mistake that people made.
No.
And that's the like toughen up, you know, the fire forges iron kind of thing. It's a survival thing. It's not a like I'm not strong because I went through adversity. I'm not a stronger person because of the developmental trauma I experienced through my childhood. I would go back and take that away from me, and I would take it away from every kid I've met in clinic because they're not stronger because of it.
Yep.
That's the mistake that we make.
Yep. How do two siblings with the same exposure to ACEs
Adverse childhood experiences. Sorry.
experience resilience differently?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I meet siblings all the time. You know, like, so there's two components to it. There's like the environment, and then there's the genetic susceptibility. And we had a lot of questions about like kids with sensitive temperaments, and they're definitely more vulnerable to fragile relationships, resulting in insecure attachment, big emotional responses, and a lack of resilience as a consequence of it. But also their cognitive abilities are different. You know, sometimes the older siblings have protective mechanisms in them. Sometimes the older siblings actually are more vulnerable because they are more aware of what's missing in their life or how detrimental, you know, that experience has been. But yeah, it's a really important thing, and it's why, like, across every single kid, the need is different, and we watch the kid, the need will change as well in what they need. So that's, you know, a really important thing about journeying with kids, as opposed to saying this is what every kid who's experienced adversity needs.
Yeah, not one shoe fits all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
How to encourage generosity other than modelling?
Yeah. Yeah, great. So modeling's a really important bit, but how else do you do it? How do you do it for Win, for example?
Promote them? Like
Yeah,
pump them up?
how do you promote it?
Pump
Great,
them up.
pump them up. What do you
Pump 'em
mean?
up.
Tell me.
Once
pump 'em
they
up.
do it.
Yeah,
Jeez, that was good.
yeah.
Like, just really common. Like, I try, this is one of those things I try and do all the time. When they do something, I've started to be like, did you just give that to her? Wow,
Yeah.
good on you.
What's the step before that? It's a bit unfair.
Set it up.
Yeah, how do you set it up?
Give her the opportunity to be generous.
Yeah.
So you've got to give her something and then like put her in front of another kid who wants that.
But what are you doing while you're doing that? So you want Winnie
to
give someone else a turn?
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Use language to be, I don't know, I have this crappy tactic. It's not a crappy tactic, but it's like, if the kid wants it, I can see this other kid wants it, they're asking for it. I'll be like, you know, no dramas, Gemma. Winnie's just about to give you a go.
Yeah.
But that feels cheap.
Well, no, you cue beautifully, but I think a really important part of it, and I'm being a bit unfair because I was asking for something too specific, is trying to get the perspective of the other kid. So what you're trying to do is say, like, how do you think?
I need to do that.
What do you reckon? How do you reckon they're feeling? Hey, what do you reckon? What do you reckon's going on?
Yes.
And what you're not trying to tell them,
No.
you're trying to help them catch it.
Yeah,
You're trying to help them sense
by
it,
asking
experience
questions.
it.
Like
Yeah.
that whole. What do you think they're feeling?
So yeah, that's different to modelling. That's like, how do I explore this skill development in you? How do I say to Evie, hey, what do you reckon's going on for Charlie? When Charlie's like getting a bit frustrated and wanting something, and then I do what you do. I'll be like, I reckon he wants a shot, and I'm not saying give it to him. And then when she does, I reinforce it. Well, it's just,
I'm
it's
going to
the
work
step
on that
before
one.
that.
I love that one. No, it's really important because I reckon I do all that other. I wouldn't say it's a crappy tactic, but the cueing I do really well. I'm like, oh, you know, no, they're about to.
But you
give
just
a go.
want her to catch it first.
You want them to do it. Yes,
yeah,
I
you
know.
want her to
I know.
notice and go, hey, Ron's getting a bit frustrated, or I wonder what Ron would be feeling, but I always go first.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if Ron would sometimes like to be in charge of the game. So you just want to help her explore that perspective, and then, like you said, make her feel good about it. The other thing that's different to modelling is we explore it in narrative, story times, imaginative play, all the other stuff. That's another real core pillar of how kids learn things.
I'm not looking at the clock to hurry you up. I'm looking at a timestamp. I'm going to come back to the
Okay.
because I look at the timestamp. I'm going to listen to that a couple times. That's why I'm doing it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Hey, Billy, what is the characteristics of a person who is not resilient?
Yeah, great. So there's two components to that. One is that they're still actively, traumatized by whatever stress and negativity they're experiencing. That's an obvious one. Like they're still really overwhelmed by that negative feedback or awful thing that happened to them. That's one. The second one is me, like commonly. They have an unhealthy coping mechanism. They overcompensate, they avoid, like all of that stuff. So those are the signs. Like you are a North Star with this because you have healthy ways of coping with stress. And
you started answering. I started writing the answers. For the first time in 97 episodes, I was like, that's a great answer. And I was like, what? I've got this recorded.
Yeah, and you're going to have to listen to it to help me get the highlights.
I know. Sorry. I started typing, looking at you going, yep, good answer. And I was like, hang on, I'm on a podcast.
And you're a veteran, mate. You're a veteran of a top 10
I didn't know
podcast.
where I was. I'm a veteran. I'm definitely a veteran, Billy. I'm old. Hey, does Nick think wearing cardigans has increased his resilience? Has to be. I always think about when yeah, I think it does because people pass comment and it's not always nice comments. I'm
But
like,
what? Yeah, totally.
Oh no, I think
To
about when you're
celebrate
like,
part of it.
no, you said something recently. You were like, like you wear a woman's straw hat up to the shops, and I was like, I suppose I am resilient. Like,
It is a beautiful demonstration of your resilience. But you are, mate. You're like, you have a healthy masculinity in you that you're like, then you express it through clothing. You express it through how warm you are. I remember I recently said to you on the phone, I love you. And Henry was in the background and you were like, he's only saying that because he knows you're listening.
What's true? No, it wasn't. I think wearing a black T-shirt shows them resilience. I was always told, don't wear a black T-shirt. Mate. And orange. My mum was like, don't wear orange.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Anyway.
Hey, Billy, how do I teach resilience to my neurodivergent child when all I want to do is shield him?
Yeah, so we have some people we care about in our lives that struggle with this, and obviously a lot of families that I meet in clinic. Yeah, being aware of that's really important, and I don't want anyone to listen to what we're saying and saying stop shielding kids, but it's just how do we make sure they have that opportunity to stretch,
Small stretch.
And the challenge with neurodiversity is that, they will not be heard, they will not be seen, they'll be misunderstood, and the responsibility is on us to pick that up. The kids shouldn't have this extra burden of like, I have to fight because, a neurotypical world says this is how you express anxiety, this is how you show that you're struggling, this is how you ask for help. We just want to watch kids and learn, what are they expressing, what are they experiencing, what are they trying to communicate, and that's our job, as in society, not the individual parent. So,
Blade Runner episode.
Yeah,
that's amazing. A colleague came to me yesterday. She goes, I'm listening to Blade Runner episode about neurodiversity, and that you just did the episode in one sentence there around.
Yeah,
they won't be seen. They won't be seen. They won't be heard. They'll be misunderstood.
Yeah. I was really poetic. That was the phase of the podcast.
That's amazing.
Really
Poetry. No, we don't call it
soapbox,
phase. We call them errors. That was Billy's poetic error.
You meant ERA, didn't you? You didn't mean ERRO.
Error. I'm keeping you young here, buddy. Breathe it in. Hey, okay. How do I explain to others you don't need to use tough love to teach resilience?
Yeah, well, I don't really understand tough love. Like, I've never really, love is not, love's not tough or gentle, you know what I mean? It's a weird thing. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of older generation and still, unfortunately, some people that I got a sense of after the Imperfects episode that still think that we should be taught to punch people in the face and stuff like that, which is just crazy that in 2024 that exists, and we've still got some work to do. But, yeah, it's just about resilience is about acknowledging the harm that's occurred, helping them heal, and then, that second step of like all the stuff we've talked about, the belonging, the independence, the generosity and all that stuff coming after that and doing it gently and helping them learn, just like we did with, teaching a kid how to be generous. It's like, how do we really specifically focus on that understanding, the child development capacity and what's a realistic expectation and helping them learn that. And you should see gains in weeks to months about the specific thing that you're focusing on. If you're not, it's because, you might be being too tough, the stretch might be too much, or you might not be actually helping them learn. It's funny, without riffing too much on the shorts, I always think it's funny, and I do this too, we are so good at teaching kids how to ride a bike. We kind of like get excited about it and we're pumped and we're really strengths-based. We kind of go, they fall off and we go, oh, mate, you were doing so well. Yeah. Let me help you back up. Let's get on. I'll give you a bit more help. But they fall over emotionally and we just have a go at them, have a tantrum, and we come down hard on them. Do you know what I mean? It's such a weird thing that we don't do the same. This bike skill development is exactly the same as the emotional skill development, how to regulate, how to perspective take.
Fall over emotionally.
Yeah, but we have a go at them. And imagine if you saw someone trying to teach a kid how to ride a bike, having a go at them when they fell off. You'd be like, oh, my God. Or, blowing up at them because they still haven't figured it out yet. Like, yeah.
You're on fire today.
The pod's about to go down.
Absolute fire. I'm serious.
Yeah, I've just been doing a lot of public talks.
Emotionally, so, that is like...
Yeah.
I never... 97 eps, I hadn't thought about it like that.
God, if that's something I haven't said before, because I know I repeat myself a lot.
Keep that
Yeah.
Do something. That's a good one. Hey, hey, where does resilience sit for complex mental health conditions like schizophrenia?
Yeah, great question. So they hold the most out of all of us. Like,
What does that mean?
hold the most weight. So mental illness is a weight that we carry around with us. So it makes things harder. It makes journeys longer and more stressful, and interactions more difficult and more vulnerable. You know, and the guys that are dealing with that through no fault of their own, like, you know, Winnie's food allergy is not her fault. No. Another person's schizophrenia is not theirs either. But we have so much stigma, especially with some of those conditions around, or it must be something they've done, or it's because they don't just suck it up or whatever. But what an awful thing to put even more weight on those people about that, to shame them or feel like it's their responsibility, or if they just change their mindset, everything would be better. So that's where it sits. It's more weight. They carry more weight, and we as a community should help lift it off them.
Gotcha.
By first step, not stigmatising them, not thinking that they're responsible for it, it's their fault, or they should just get over it.
Okay. All right. How do I talk about past events to foster resilience and healthy processing for my child?
What do you got for this? What'd you do with the girls?
How do I talk about past events and foster resilience?
So something that's been hard. Say like not doing well at swimming, or stuffing up, having a hard time at a party.
Yeah. So I bring that up. I'm not sure if I'm trying to make the connection here. I use the swimming example constantly in her life.
How do you do it?
Reminder, remember how tough that was. And then I kind of sort of talk to like, but you know, remember what you did in that to get better at that?
Yeah,
beautiful. And she goes, yep. And I do it all the time. She parroted it back to me the other day, mocking me on something, mocking me. It was great.
Yeah,
in a healthy way. It was
yeah,
fun,
totally.
Goes, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, yeah.
And I say it, and I go, well, she goes,
Yeah, beautiful. What a beautiful thing that she knows you go out to say, is reminding her of how well she did at something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the other thing is you do it gently and you do it openly.
And at the right time.
And how,
not when
at
she's
the right
like,
time. Yeah, totally.
Probably
that's the other thing.
Yeah, timing it right. I've learned that. It's like, you know, she's like monkey bars, and I've seen her come off the monkey bars. It was really terrible one day. She came off the monkey bars and, you know, in front of everyone, landed on her back, and she was in shock. It was a bad fall, and you're like, I'm not about to go, well, you've had this before. And she's like, I want to cuddle, mate.
Yeah, I just want to get out of here. I want to not have people watching me. I want the pain to go away. Totally. So the open bit is really important as well, and you just explore it and ask them how they feel about it. How do you feel about that time thinking back?
This is, I've got notes on my thing. I know about building connection, but I haven't been doing it as well as you've done it in 2 out of the last 5 questions.
Oh, mate, it's easy to say it.
I've just got to prioritise it. Anyway, sorry. Bit up and about, aren't I? Hey, Billy, Billy, can you comment on strategies for people whose trauma isn't a phase? Example, a disability?
Yeah, great question.
You can't, like, this is different to like schizophrenia, which I don't know about schizophrenia, but anyway, this feels more permanent.
So what we're talking about, is something
easily.
that people are going to have to hold, and that extra weight being with them. So yeah, I think it's really important that we are guided by those individuals, and that we think about what makes them feel like they are genuinely included. This is the inclusion stuff that I always soapbox about. I won't do it again. But how do we genuinely know that we are stronger and make that person experience the feeling that they add value to the things that matter to them and the communities that they're a part of? You know, that's the important thing, because that can help. And we know what the evidence shows in people that will have like permanent struggles or disability and things like that. But how do we don't force it on them. We don't say, hey, this is what it's going to look like, you being a part of this. We explore it with them. We get to know them. We get to make sure, like the 2 questions I always ask, they are a part of things that they enjoy, and they get to keep doing things that they're good at. Like that's, you know, a big part of resilience as well, is how's that feeling? I don't know about you. Like, what's your feeling? Do you feel like you succeed every day? Do you feel like you have belonging, independence, generosity, like that you have mastery?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in I've learnt from answering this incorrectly last episode. Yeah, I think I do. Not perfect, but I have points in the day where I can try and focus on and go, well, that was good, or that was good. I don't reflect the end of every day.
Totally, but I think
feel
it's
like I
important
do.
as parents and the little kids in our lives, whether you're a teacher or you're a stranger on the street, that you think about how do I look around and make sure everyone is, and how do I not create false ceilings for people who might have disability or things like that? You know, how do we make sure that we contribute to that for everyone?
Yep.
It's really like schools do this really well, and there's some powerful stuff coming about schools as well.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Hey, Billy, is it just me, or is BIG, which is our acronym BIG, belonging, independence, generosity, so hard as a new parent? Thanks, PCP, for helping with the B.
Yeah, amazing.
belonging.
That's why I ended the shorts on that one.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard at the start because we're just learning to get like I'm literally Charlie's like 15 months. I'm learning who he is now. Do you know what I mean? And his mum, Annalise, who's amazing, has known who he is for a while, but it's beautiful because now he preferences me. Which is a rare thing for me. I don't think I've read the bedtime story to book to a vet in about 3 months. Every time I have to hide my feelings of hurt when we ask her who she wants. But then when Charlie always wants me to be the one that's with him and he sees me and cracks it until I pick him up. But I'm forming that connection, and now I'm a part of, I can really lean into Charlie's belonging because of the relationship and connection I get to have with him, whereas Annalise has been doing it since the moment he was born.
Beautiful. We're into the longs.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Dr. Billy, for first-time listeners, this is the longs. These are questions that come through from people via our popcultureparenting@gmail.com or via Instagram. We ask more longer, complex questions. We're gonna get through them. Hi, Dr. Nick and Dr. Billy. I'm a long-time listener, first-time asker. I also recommend your podcast to every parent that I meet, especially the new ones, as I found your podcast a lifeline for when I felt like I was drowning as a new mum. My question is about resilience. I can say that I developed pretty good resilience growing up in a third world country. Life was hard. One wouldn't always have everything easily accessible or available. Schools did not provide adequate any support for children who were not having a positive time at school, e.g. being bullied, struggling in academics. And with authoritarian parents, one learns how to just be resourceful, accepting, and able to adapt it, just get on with it attitude. I'm now a mum of a 20-month-year-old who is just absolutely delightful and full of personality. My question is, how do I guide my child in developing resilience from this age in this first world country environment? And can you please provide examples of how I can scaffold resilient development? Thank you both for so much that you do and for all the time you put into helping not just us parents, but also kids and the community. I got your book, Dr. Billy, and after reading it, I left it in my child's childcare centre so other parents and the educators can learn from you too. Wishing you both, you and your families, all the very best and hoping for many more episodes to come.
Yeah, amazing. We're hearing that about the
drop?
book. Because it's like got a wait list at libraries and stuff. So we're going to try and think about how we can get it out to more people without there being a cost involved. Yeah, so it's really important in the young kids that you start doing this. And there was a beautiful question that we didn't include that talked about like just sitting with and holding kids' hands when they're struggling. And I think it's a really important bit about the 20-month-old, like the toddlers. We know 18 months to 4 to 5 years is the window where, for want of a better word, tantrums are really experienced. Yeah. And, you know, how we help build resilience is we validate that experience and sit with them and support them through it. And that's how we do it. That's the key to that age group, is how they learn very on that every emotional challenge that they're having is supported and valid. And how do they learn that every single behaviour is okay? We can handle it. So that doesn't mean it's okay that you hit someone. It's okay that you bite someone. It's okay that you do whatever. It's that I will unconditionally support you and I can handle it. And not all the time. There are times when it frustrates us, we need to walk away and all that stuff, but they learn that someone is here next to me getting better at helping me manage this in a healthy way.
How good.
Yeah.
I love that one.
So I'll try and be as punchy with all the other ones.
No, you're right. Heineken Billy. Massive fan of you boys. I'm a bit of an outlier among your listeners, but love the podcast all the same. I'm a third-year OT student with zero experience with children, but I find reflecting on my own childhood through the podcast incredibly insightful. I was lucky to grow up with parents who were always kind, gentle, and from what I can tell, generally aligned with the main principles that you guys uphold. I was a relatively well-behaved kid, but felt severe anxiety during childhood, which I had assumed was normal. During my teens, while still experiencing this, I fell in with the wrong crowd and ended up doing stupid things that are unfortunately common among teenage boys. This led me down a darker path, as through my own actions, I threw away what was once a promising footy career along with my schooling. Reflecting on this, I was in quite a dark place. I was caught up in the pack mentality that you described. I was aware that I was doing the wrong thing, but just couldn't seem to get out of it and couldn't understand why. I ended up finding the quote, "Get comfortable being uncomfortable," which for some reason resonated so well with me. It turned the anxiety I was facing into a game, and that made life somewhat fun. I still see life through this lens to this day, and I feel significantly less anxious than I used to be, despite having double the responsibilities I used to. I've always thought that if I were to give my children one phrase to live by, it would be this, and I would attempt to deliver this message to them from a very young age. This may show my naivety. However, after hearing the pod last week and your recommendation about waiting to teach resilience in a healthy environment, I've begun to question whether this has been a healthy coping mechanism or not. It seems to have worked for me thus far, healthy or otherwise, despite it coming at one of the darkest times. So, a bit of a muddled up question for you. Is this healthy? Should I tell my future children this? And if so, from when? My other thought was this was only effective because I found it independently. As if someone had told me to do this and your anxiety will go away. I'm not sure I would have listened. Thank you for all that you do. Even for those of us who aren't yet parents, you're genuinely saving lives.
Great question. So so that's the difference between it's important functionally. How is it functionally serving them? I think there's a risk in that, maybe not for this individual, but for this as a strategy that we, share with people. I think the most beautiful thing about this question is with future children, if you have them, share your story of coming through that. Normalise the adversity, normalise the mistakes and the errors. Yes. That's the important thing. We don't want to hide our kids from our own challenging childhoods and think, because it can help them navigate it. It can help them normalise that falling over is expected, something that will happen. You'll feel guilty, you'll experience all those things, and then help them in how you got through it, but not saying that's how you should get through it too. Yeah. There is a risk in this kind of persistent and tough it up, and I do this, and this is where my dysfunction is. I remember, the hardest window of my time, a couple of years before I met Annalise, and I was telling myself the quote, "If you're going through hell, keep going." And that was to survive. That wasn't to become resilient. I remember for about 4 years on my computer backdrop was a beautiful quote from the film Lawrence of Arabia. I don't know if you've seen that film. It's based on Thomas Elliott's book, 7 Pillars of Wisdom, and I was reading it at the time. It's a really amazing book and a really amazing individual and story behind it. But there's this scene in the movie essentially where he puts out matches with his fingers, and he's a soldier, he's a military commander or something. And he has this thing where while he's talking, he lights a match of someone's cigarette and puts it out with his fingers. And people are watching him fascinated by the fact that he can do it. And a guy does it after him. And he goes, that hurt? How do you do that? And the guy that's done it and said that his name is William Potter. And he says, the trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts. And I had that as a quote that I lived by through that period, which was really about how do I just tolerate, how do I get through this? Okay. But that quote doesn't serve me anymore.
Not anymore. Okay.
And I need to push back against that quote and push back against actually it's not about not minding that it hurts. I needed that to survive. I don't need that to be resilient. So it's a really important bit about how do we shield our kids from expecting that you should just suck it up and tolerate it.
Yeah.
And that's, there is a point beyond survival for all of us. There were some people that sent in messages about that's really important for me to say actually, about a sense that last time I said that, my relationship with Annalise is the reason that I'm surviving and resilient, and that's hard to hear for someone that doesn't have a romantic partner, or that Frankel's book actually made it harder for them because he was able to go through this adversity in the Holocaust. I agree with both of those statements. The reason is because during active healing, Frankel's book does not help.
No.
It doesn't help that perspective taking. And I am not healing. Annalise is a complementary component for me, and I think Henry is for you, and my kids as well. I need to be a whole person that's valid to myself, and I love myself outside of those things. They are complementary to it. So I don't want anyone to feel, and there is always a chance to heal, so that it's never over. I am living proof of that. I was in the depths of not wanting to go on anymore for a long time, and I was 100% certain, just like those people that send in messages, that would never change, and it has. Not because I met Annalise, not because I had kids, but I just went through a healing process. It took a long time.
Yeah, I don't think I knew you back during this period of time. But
no, I lost a lot of relationships.
Yeah.
I was hypersensitive to loss. Just off the back of, losing my mum and stuff like that. So it was a catastrophic time for my life. And I just, to be 100% honest, I put my head into my work so much.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, my point was like not to say, I wasn't there, but I'm thrilled that we're doing this.
Oh, yeah. This is part of my healing is this as well. Part of my belonging is this podcast.
Yeah, awesome.
Every question that comes in helps me feel a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Hey, Billy.
I'm going to jump up to 2. Sorry.
Huh?
My formatting was bad. Can you jump up to question 2? Just my formatting was bad. That was 3.
Oh, did I? Oh, sorry. You're
It's
right.
okay.
Hey, how do you build the hi, Dr. Hi, Dr. Nick and Dr. Billy. How do you build the mastery part of resilience in younger kids who are 4, who is so anxious about perfection that she needs to shy away from trying new things? P.S. I think there may be a component of RSD in our suspected AUDHD bundle of joy.
Yeah, so RSD is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So yeah, the rejection sensitivity dysphoria is like huge emotions tied, huge emotional responses, and it's like seems to have a tie to, in the research, kids who have executive function or ADHD difficulties is that they have a challenge in how to process small senses of failure objectively, seem to have big reactions and responses to them. And in a 4-year-old, they're starting to get that perspective taking of how they are perceived by others. And so there is even greater sensitivity in that window. So what you want to do is what are like really safe environments and opportunities for them to experience mastery and success, but also light touches of not doing something perfectly. How do we once again role model it? How do we build it in our narratives, our imaginative play? Show it ourselves, and talk about it openly and ask them questions about it and all that stuff. But gently is the key with those kids. They are very vulnerable to feeling like they're not good at things and they're not good at the world, and especially when they start looking around and feeling like other people are watching us. Like, it's a good example of like falling off the monkey bars. There's the physical pain of it, but there's also I've just failed at something in front of everyone else. Yeah. So that rejection sensitivity dysphoria is a profile of that, where you need to be really gentle with it. Yeah. And make sure you go at the pace of the kid. We always go at the pace of the kid, not the pace of us.
Yeah, which is hard when obviously as you're a parent, you're trying to keep pace with life, and it happens at the wrong time, and you've got to get home, but there's no time.
So you don't build, for example, Winnie's sense of stuffing stuff up on, like you said, on the monkey bars. Yeah. You go, this is the most vulnerable. As we talk about, the playground is Lord of the Flies. It's not the place to do it. It's how do I make sure that they get good at being able to handle senses of failure and not doing something well in safe environments, which is often with their primary caregiver in their home.
Yep. Hey, Billy, loving the podcast and learning so much. Thank you so much. I got a book on resilience. It said, talk to your kids about putting things in perspective, e.g., you lost your hair tie versus we're moving house. I can't remember how my kids, I can't understand how my kids can grasp this concept. They get upset about things big and small. I don't want to minimize their feelings. How do you teach this concept to putting things into perspective, which would be part of being resilient?
Yeah, do you understand that question? So what they're essentially saying is like kids are worse off than you. Like, telling kids that when they're like, I want a second ice cream, and you're like, do you know how lucky you are to get an ice cream? You know what I mean? So yeah, how do you feel about that?
Guilty.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Does it help?
I mean, not all the time. I'm getting better. I can remember historically saying that.
Yeah. Does it help?
No, that
Does
perspective.
the child
giving.
ever go, oh, yeah, you're right, sorry. Puts the ice cream back and is like, thank you for the first one.
I do it a lot around TV on demand. I'm like, oh, you don't like what's on the live channel?
We
Go
used to
outside.
have to watch
Literally whatever came down the pipe, mate. Whatever came down the pipe in the 80s and 90s, we watched it. And if you didn't like it, you went outside for 5 and you came back.
I love that.
I've done
I love
it.
them. Oh God, mate. The generation older than us, believe it, there is one. Are they talk about we just had to make entertainment ourselves, and we were so good at it. We'd go out and we'd build cubbies and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you also didn't have the option of screens. They all sometimes there's this looking down upon us, like, oh, if iPads existed, I would have pushed it to the side and just played in the dirt. I'm like, no, you wouldn't have. You would have done the same thing as all of us, been caught by it. And so perspective taking is helpful. I saw this beautiful family yesterday. This mum is so fierce. She's like, I was like, oh my God, please. The whole time she was talking, I'm like still getting to know them a bit. I was like, please be on her side, because she's like taking local government to court. She's in really insecure housing. She's got 4 kids, all with horrific mental illness, active developmental trauma for her as well. She's got 4 dogs, 2 cats, 3 fish tanks, and a macaw. And she's like, do you know what she does that's beautiful? She's like, the neighbours hate me because it's always so noisy here. But she's like, there's a lot of kids in this community that don't have a home that they feel safe, and they come here and they feel safe, and they play music and they're loud and they have fun, and I just have to tolerate the neighbours getting annoyed about that. I was just like, what an amazing human. She's like so financially unstable. She's like, doesn't know where she's going to be living next week, and just takes in, that's the animals. She rescues them all from shelters and stuff. And she's so pissed off with all these professionals and everything that I was like, oh my God, please. I'm here to help. And I validate every frustration she has. Very open about, you need to tell me if I'm frustrating you, how can I be the most helpful, all that stuff. The reason I'm telling that story is she's so connected to these kids that's the first step, and then she helps them stretch from perspective taking. And that's the important point. And we don't tell people, we want to help them learn. Does that make sense? So if I say to you,
Coaching.
Mate, do you realise, you say you're stressed about something, you're like, oh, the mortgage. And I'm like, mate, do you realise how many people will never have a mortgage in this country? It doesn't help you, does it?
No.
Whereas if in times of calm, I can go, God, it must really suck to be a young person at the moment, and realising that the things that we just took for granted were going to be a part of our life, like secure housing, they have to worry about. Do you know what I mean? But if I tell you that in the moment when you're like, the mortgage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We
totally.
should do it with kids. Kids
Totally.
are not more capable than us
Yep.
of being able to use that effectively. So that's why not forcing it on them at the time.
Yep.
Anyway.
No. I'm guilty of it. Hey, Billy, question 5. Hey, guys, absolutely love your work. Thanks for all the time and care you pour into it. As a parent who grew up overexposed to adversity, my tendency with my kids is to give them all the warmth I can manage so they avoid the upbringing I experience. But in saying that, I've seen the essential value of learning resilience in my own life, which makes me think that hand-holding or sheltering my kids too much may deny them the chance to practice resilience. How can I find the balance of fostering resilience in our kids without being negligent and overexposing them to risk, but on the same side, not bubble wrapping them and taking away opportunities for them to practice resilience? And a follow-on question relating to resilience for my orchid child, my eldest daughter, 4, has an orchid temperament. She is clever, empathetic and strong-willed, but super sensitive and avoidant of challenging experiences and environments. I know she will thrive in anything she chooses to do, but she is so hesitant to step out of her comfort bubble. Can you explain the intricacies of how best to support orchid children in learning resilience, in risk aversion linked to low resilience? How firmly or gently should I push into uncomfortable experiences, or should we push at all? Dentist vaccinations, hairdressers, sports, and even kindy excursions are impossible at the moment. Thanks to your work you do, my girls are getting a better mum for all I'm learning from PCP, and I'm sure this is true for many other families who listen.
Yeah, great. What have you got?
Don't ask me on this one. I've had some challenging things but with that. So the second part, the sensitive child and stuff.
But so there's the same whole question. That's why it's chosen. It's so beautifully framed about how do we find that balance.
Yeah. unfortunately, I've probably done more trial and error than I have done good stretch and ability to get things done.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about vaccinations. Sorry, I'm thinking about the really practical one. But sorry.
Totally, but no. I think the beautiful step that you made, and I remember we spoke about that off air, was that you eventually took control, but you did it from a love.
Yep,
you
totally.
didn't do it aggressively. You did it from like, I'm also finding this hard.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And now I've got to be the parent.
Yeah.
Didn't you?
Yeah.
But that's a beautiful thing because you tried the really sensitive response so many times. The flip side is I was getting really worried about Evie and swimming, and I was putting pressure on swimming and getting confident to put her head under the water. And then just almost one time with some older kids that were putting their head under water, I backed off, not intentionally. I just wasn't paying attention to it, and she did it.
Yeah.
And so there's a beautiful lesson in both those stories that one, you needed to actually put a greater expectation, but you needed to hold most of the weight of it.
Yeah.
Versus sometimes the kids with sensitive temperaments just need slower, more gentle, more almost more passive opportunity. Just give them a chance to be there, and lower level expectations, really gentle and all that stuff. And so every single child and every single experience has a different need in terms of the balance of like the stretch and the control and setting them up, but you never do it from pressure. You never do it from an emotional, like you have to.
Yeah. Hey, just on that one, like, is there any merit in like, so after the fact, she did it. So just quickly, 4 attempts at getting a vaccination. The 4th time I just had to sort of grab her, get the vaccination. And after she had the vaccination, she was like, that was it. Like it was nothing. And I'm like, exactly. Later on, she's like, is there any merit to this next bit, Billy? She ended up writing like a diary for the next time because we're getting vaccination next year, that she was like, it wasn't that bad. The lollipop was great. The nurse is gentle. All of these things. Is there any merit in sort of doing this in conjunction with this, or you're like, it's kind of past the moment? Because I want to call her and be like, hey, should we go get that diary?
It's a beautiful narrative of it, and you might find but so some people
might
for
not be useful.
But also it's okay if she really, really gets overwhelmed next time, and you've got to be okay with that yourself, and you might actually need to have the control perspective again, but you give her an opportunity. And this is like some kids who are nervous about going to school, we make the mistake of like, the night before going, it's going to be great, it's going to be all this, and it's just pressuring them. Some kids, that will work. And so watch the kid. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, but it's a good balancing act of like, how do we do that? So pressure often makes things go in the wrong direction. So how do we just take pressure out of that, especially for the sensitive kids when we're trying to develop resilience? And that kind of finally, very quickly, there is a personality component about like willingness to experience novelty, like go into new things. And it's kind of a temperament, almost like a circle of security thing. And it doesn't mean that they are associated with lower levels of resilience. It just means that we need to be sensitive to that vulnerability in them. I hope that makes sense.
Yep. No, it's good. Question 6. Hey, guys. 1, you said healing trauma needs to happen before building resilience. It seems like the big M aspects could also support healing of trauma, especially belonging and maybe meaning. How do you know when enough healing has happened that a young person is ready for support and focuses on building resilience? 2, does Dr. Bruce Perry's neurosequential model align or otherwise with the understanding of resilience?
Yeah, beautiful. Great question.
Do you know that model?
Yeah, I know that person. Like Dr. Bruce Perry, I spent time with him on the Churchill. He's amazing. I talked to him about it. He framed how I wrote the book. Because his how the boy was raised as a dog is a beautiful example of like he in a similar way had a different child around every chapter. So he didn't put as much personally into it as I did. That may be potentially oversharing self-disclosure. But in a different, I was developmental life course, mental health stuff. He was like severely traumatized kids, like in all the chapters. And the neurosequential, it's a really important framework that essentially says that we all have different through our life course developmental windows and capacities, and often kids who are traumatized firstly get stalled, but they also have asymmetrical development. And so sometimes the biggest vulnerability for a lot of this stuff is we look at a kid and say, you're this old, you should be able to do this. also what that model shows and all of Bruce Perry's work shows is how important relationships are. Repetitive experiences of positive, safe, predictable, unconditionally supported relationships. That's the most important thing for every single child. It's the biggest thing missing for kids in out-of-home care and who are experiencing significant ongoing fracturing of relationships, and they just feel like they're not safe. Okay. And so that safety bit is when the belonging bit can shift from a healing component, because belonging can be healing. The podcast is helping me heal in belonging, but also I'm still in the healing phase of that, and so it can't be expected to well, you should be resilient now. You're part of a podcast community. Do you know what I mean? That's the difference, is that it's not, well, you should be past that now. I will decide, and every kid that I see in clinic will decide when they're ready. I've got a beautiful kid that I was seeing, which was, to be 100% honest, I was trying to avoid this situation, where the mum was just so much of her own stuff, and she's gorgeous mum, had a lot of trauma and is really struggling. And she kept saying, hey, can you just have a chat to him? And he's got a therapist, he's got all his people. I was like, I get to see this kid every 3 months. I'm not the right person to do this. But she was so persistent that I was like, fine. And he's in early high school. He's still he has autism. He has a lot of challenges. He's soiling himself all the time. He has what's called encopresis, where he's so chronically constipated that he gets no sensation and all of this stuff. And he's just his parents and other parts of the team are really getting frustrated at him because he's not being compliant with some of the medications in the sitting, because he's just so used to it. And I was like, yeah, cool. Yep, you go. Because there was other things that are a priority, but she really wanted me to give him this pep talk, which I'm always I'm going to fail at that. It's this beautiful moment with this kid where essentially, in terms of sense of belonging, when this was yesterday, I was just heard his story, and I was like, oh my God, I've seen him 4 or 5 times, so I should have realized this. He's really smart. And he's like, oh no, I'm just good at saying words. I was like, no, you're not. You're using those words appropriately. You've got this huge insight. And he's like, yeah, I really struggle because no one sees me as anything other than the smelly weird kid. And I was just like, that must be awful. He's this gorgeous kid. Honestly, it was the highlight of my day. And I was just and he was a really tough morning yesterday morning. He was this beacon in the middle of it of just Jesus, I learned something from him just by doing what his mum actually told me to do, was just talk to him on his own. And I was pushing back against it. And he's just, he needs that to be validated, and he needs help with the medical stuff that's going on. But that kid needs a sense of belonging for healing, And I think therapeutically genuine, well, I think probably a little bit in the conversation I had with him, because it wasn't put on. I genuinely was like, mate, you're amazing. I didn't realize this about you, how articulate you are and all these strengths that you have and all this stuff. And I was just like, man, he needs places where this has an outlet. And he has asymmetrical development. His intelligence is well beyond his years in terms of he's actually smarter and brighter and more articulate and insightful than most kids his age, which will also make it hard for him to form relationships with same age peers. And that's the weird bit, is that he's talking about deep stuff in a complex way, and other kids will be like, I just want to talk about the footy. And he struggles with that, and that's a component of the autism that he has a diagnosis of as well, is that social and communication difficulty. So, but he showed me the path for him, and it's about how to give him those experiences.
Okay. Question 7. Hi, Dr. Billy and Mr. Nick. Massive fan. I recommend PCP podcast to everyone. I'm an educational consultant as well as a parent in a neurodivergent family. Something you may love to know is that my colleagues and I listen to each episode and meet and discuss this topic, share our own perspectives and knowledge and our takeaways and learnings. What a gift.
Amazing.
I have been across the world. I have been across the word resilience for many years now. I've been concerned with how resilience is used in schools and kinders with children and families, so I was keen to hear your episode. I loved Shawshank Redemption connection to resilience. Thank you for taking your time and energy to pull it together. My question for you both is this. What would you like to see in schools and kinders to support resilience in children, families and teachers and educators? Currently, we have cookie-cutter programs that are designed by teachers and businesses. Educational researchers and leaders have shown that these types of wellbeing programs do not work. Schools sign up to these trendy programs to show that they are doing something in the space of resilience. These programs are underpinned by research comparing their program to nothing, which of course something is better than nothing. But actually, these programs for many are detrimental effect and make resilience even more difficult. For example, in the first 5 days of this school term, my children's school sent over 100 official and important notifications to families. These included links to forms that needed completing, newsletters, letters, and important dates and tasks, etc. Over 100 in 5 days. This volume of correspondence and level of input required from families is overwhelming. It is also a school that has ticked the box because we have a resilience program. The resilience program in our schools has engaged this year. The resilience program our school has engaged this year always posts alarming stats about the 1 in 7 children that experience mental health problems, yet then goes on to provide lists of provide lists of empathy tasks families can do in addition to the overwhelming amount of life tasks, and teaches the children to be grateful that we're not as bad off as another person we passed on the street. Technically, my family is the 1 in 7, and in my work, I'm an advocate for the 1 in 7. But these resilience programs in many schools and kinders are having the opposite effect for the 1 in 7 when it comes to resilience. So, big dreaming, what would you like to see schools and kinders to support? What would you like to see schools and kinders to support resilience for children and families and the teachers and educators who teach and care for them? Thank you for everything you give, Nick and Billy, your fan.
What do you think about schools? You're in schools.
I haven't come across resilience programs yet. I think because we're in foundation prep, we have the stuff that she's involved in. I don't think she's even able to do some of the NETI programs and stuff. So broadly speaking, I think they don't do a lot of anything at this stage.
And how do you feel, obviously, without calling out your school, but how do you feel about that connection and correspondence and heaps of stuff coming through?
There is lots of corro, but I think that's common, like this person's saying. I haven't had as many as that. But you do get a lot of correspondence. But I think that's common in schools now, is it? I'm
definitely
8 months into school.
It's
a lot.
So yes, I mean, I can talk to this from my PhD, and this person knows what they're talking about because some of it, the evidence is pretty low, and some of it is detrimental that happens, and there's a missed opportunity and stuff that isn't evidence based that schools putting energy and resources obviously into stuff where they could be directing that towards something else. And it's interesting as well, the question of evidence is a hard one because I agree with that person. But Bruce Perry actually said to me, there's been 2 people that have told me the podcast or the book is not evidence-based. And Perry said to me, he's like, first they'll ignore you, then they'll tell you it's not evidence-based, and then people will just start taking what you're doing and doing it themselves.
Gotcha.
And Perry's, one of the giants of this space. So it's really important to hear that about how do we understand that journey as a normal process, but also so what the PhD taught me is that every community's needs are different. So the cookie cutters hit that wall of being actually every school community's, every child's needs are different. What you're seeing is what we've talked about. That is not, those resilience strategies are detrimental to people that are actively struggling with mental illness because they're saying, do this empathy thing at home. And the parent's like, my kid's humming with anxiety. Is struggling to function, is struggling to come into this space, and I'm meant to sit here and say what I'm grateful for. Or, thinking things like that. Well, the other thing that's missing, and we need to pay teachers more, we need to resource schools better, we need to train them better. There's strong evidence on pre-service education, and that's my PhD did not do that. It worked with teachers actively working in the space, which is evidence-based. But how do we teach them child development, mental health stuff? That's what I'm trained in. I train clinicians in it. I train educators in it. How do we give that to people through their journey, and also reflective practice opportunities? There's evidence in that. Guiding Growing Minds does it a lot. The bit that's really missing is connection with community. What happens is schools should be the centre, and they should be supported by the entire community. They should be supported by the police, the legal system, the family services. They should proactively have all those relationships set up. So the schools, when they've got a family that's drowning, know the person to go to. Those programs are in place. They happen proactively. We hear about this stuff. Awful things happen at a school, and they shoot flares up and say, come and help. They shouldn't have to do that. We should be actively connected. They should know all the clinicians, GPs being the most important one. Those GPs should have paid time to be a part of that school community. So they know the teachers, they know that. The sports coaches that are good at this, the local footy club knows. Some of the most disadvantaged schools in Melbourne, the local soccer coach knows the school, knows the teachers, and they can say, this kid is struggling. How's he going there? Can you give him a bit of extra care and support? Or we've got a kid that we need you to waive the fee for him to come. The family cannot afford it, but this is his first place to succeed and experience mastery and belonging. You know, so that's what I'm trying to do with Guiding Growing Minds, is bring the evidence in, but also bring everyone together. I've got huge opportunity with people that are coming out of the woodwork saying, how can we be a part of this that's happening? And I have a phenomenal team that's a part of it now that I'm a part of. So yeah, that's what I dream of, and that's what I'm working really hard to achieve. And we'll talk a bit more about it in the next episode.
Awesome. Number 8. Hi, Nick and Billy. I'm a proud dad of a 2-year-old firecracker and a 3-month-old cutie, but it seems that my relationship with their mum may be coming to a separation. I know this will cause trauma and they will have to work on resilience. My question is, can I prepare the kids at all pre-trauma to help recovery and building resilience? Love your work, lads. Thanks for all the effort you put into helping the world. Cheers, and love the pod.
Yeah. What do you feel reading that question?
Sad. It's tough.
Yeah, I don't know if you've had this happen socially, but I see lots of families that are really going through this actively, or it's the wound that still exists, that parents are in conflict and you know, often, you know, the dad doesn't agree with the diagnosis or the medication or whatever. And, you know, we try and think about how do we stay focused on the child's needs, but also bring everyone along together on the same path. And, and so what a beautiful thing to be thinking about, you know, this is ending. I'm sure there's so much, you know, hurt in that for both of those caregivers, but thinking about the kid. And, you know, both you and I went through this. I went through it pretty horrifically. And, you know, the important thing is be sensitive, lean into the relationships. Lean into the relationship will always be consistent. Support the relationship in the other caregiver as much as you can. Like, emphasize that. It's unconditional. It's unchallenged. It will always be there. Open spaces for feelings. Don't wait until they're struggling. Create open spaces and opportunities. Build out the sanctuaries. I think I've talked about it in the pod, definitely the book. How do you build the sanctuaries that just unconditionally occur? There's traditions that are safe spaces for that relationship to exist, those emotions to be felt. There's no pressure that occurs within them. But yeah, just watch the child, lean into the relationship. That's how you build all of that. Understanding that don't bring the resilient stuff in when they're really struggling. Bring in the healing and the relationship and all that stuff.
Yeah. Very little to add, and I don't want to problem solve and push you to another podcast, but we do have a co-parenting episode as well. To be honest, I can't actually remember the movie, but
was it Mrs. Doubtfire?
It's Mrs. Doubtfire. Yeah, it was an early one.
Because my mum hated that movie. Good. That's why I picked that up. She's like, just makes the separated dad look like he's just fun and all this stuff. And she's like, well, I'm the one, because she was actively living in it, working 3 jobs. She's like, I'm the one that's having to put the food on the table. And I remember watching Sally Fields going, yeah, this guy must be driving her crazy. It's like having the petting zoo in the house and stuff. So, yeah, but there's a co-parenting element that we didn't touch on that I'm very aware of, thanks to feedback from people that we need to get to, which is the real challenging stuff, the disagreement. And that's, if the podcast survives beyond 100, I promise it'll be there.
3 eps to go. Hey,
counting down. You promised like 500, mate. So
I know. I'll be 500 by the time. I'll look 500. Hey, Billy, question 9. Dr. Nick and Billy, you guys keep hitting it out of the park. I've previously written to you regarding my foster kiddo B. We're going to call this kid B, just so everyone knows, on the topic of resilience, and sparked some questions for me. I know you get loads of emails. So as to recap, B is a 12-year-old kiddo that has experienced severe complex trauma since prenatal. They lived full-time with a family member until 2 years ago and has since been in half a dozen placements, all staffed
residential placements. Okay. So, yeah.
Residential placements, okay. So all placements have ended suddenly due to incidents that have compromised the safety of B and or other young children in the house. We have B on the weekends on a respite basis, and I've known B through my role as a pajama angel since they were 5. What's a pajama angel?
Amazing program. It started in Queensland, but it's national now, about the Pajama Foundation. And they just, for the kids in foster care, like severe complex trauma, like this person's saying, they have volunteers that just spend time with them, get to know them, to be a safe relationship for them. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. This is a tough question. I can't help but smile at that pajama angel. Yeah. We're all observing an increasing risk-taking with B. They are regularly missing for hours on end, and there is increasing involvement with police. During these
Remember, this kid's 12. Sorry, just to frame it.
I was trying to frame a 12. I'm trying to think about a 12-year-old I know. Okay, God, yep. During these times, the risk-taking, we see evidence of big M and therefore resilience. There is belonging, unfortunately, with groups of young people who are not a good influence on B, nor be a good influence on them. We have been informed of theft from stores, driving a stolen car, aggression to community members and police. There is independence. B is catching public transport solo, hopping into cars with strangers to get where they want to get. They are confident asking strangers for money and have been successful in getting small notes from strangers. B has taken these opportunities to dramatically change their appearance, shaved off all of their hair, in what I believe is a show of independence. There is evidence of generosity. On these escapades, B will think of people close to them. B, on one of these outings, purchased Band-Aids because our little dog had an abscess that burst on the last visit, and other times they have stolen from stores things are not for them but for others who they care about. We also see in these times mastery that is starting to be of great concern. The absence from placement are getting longer. The success in the social group seems to be encouraging more serious antisocial behaviour to remain part of the group. With all that said, we see a lack of resilience in other environments, namely our home. In learning new skills, finishing a task that takes some time, completing something that is boring, this can quickly lead to meltdown if not identified and managed early, something we're getting better at thanks to PCP. My questions are, why is B able to show resilience in these antisocial environments and groups and not in a safe space like our home? How can we as a care team, noting the staff at a placement, are on 3 by 8 hour shifts rotating whilst the team is fairly consistent consistent people get sick, go on holiday, change jobs, often causing damage to relationships. Provide the safe place and feedback loop B seems to get with their peers and try to build out the big M in pro-social setting. Is there any way we can talk to B when they are demonstrating resilience that lets them know they are capable without glorifying their unapproved trips from placement? These are the ones where a few examples where B has made friends they otherwise have no ongoing friendships. They demonstrate, without glorifying their unapproved trips from placement, i.e. these are one of the few examples B has made friends. They otherwise have no ongoing relationships. They demonstrate understanding of the world around them in navigating multiple buses and trains. They are resourceful. Unfortunately, due to the frequency and the length of these absences, it is how B is spending a lot of their time, limiting opportunities for feedback to come from other activities that are approved by placement. Wow, what a novel. I hope you made it through it. Thank you for all you do. Hopefully I can fly down from Brisneyland to Melbourne for the live show. Brisneyland. I've heard of Bris Vegas. I've never heard of Brisneyland. Have you heard that? You live there.
No, yes, yeah, I love Brizzy. And there's no more seats, but we'll come to Brisbane because there's a beautiful theatre that I was lucky enough to be in there with the Imperfects, and we'll see if we can get that many people up there. Anyway, what a phenomenal question, what a phenomenal story to tell us about some of the phenomenal stuff that's happening in the community and people that guide them and care for them. So very quickly, the reason that this is happening is, yes, this child is obviously still having traumatic experiences, but this kid is doing older teen behaviours because they've had to grow up too fast. Shout out to, I think, maybe the... Braveheart, sorry. I was going to say Stand By Me. But yes, you're right, Braveheart. No, you're right, Braveheart. The Stand By Me was the bad kids, which is this kid too. And this is a perfect example of them just wanting connection paired with their risk seeking. So resilience and risk are a balancing act, and this kid they're right. They are demonstrating resilience in this, but these are unhealthy relationships and experiences they're having because the risk is too much. Don't think about a 12-year-old. If you and I were having run-ins at the cops, stealing stuff, doing all those things, those for an adult, those are pretty high risk situations of physical harm, but ongoing mental harm caused by them. And this kid is just seeking connection so much. So what I would say is you are a safe relationship for them, but think about the best way to change a behavior or to deal with unhealthy relationships that teenagers have is try and put better ones in its place. But acknowledging it's going to take time. You're going to have to do it gently. You're going to have risk involved in it. You're going to have to really set up opportunities for them to seek that out. Do you know what I mean? So
the risk involved.
So you're going to have to do things with these kids. Can't just pull them out of risk.
You're going to have to pair them off risk.
Yeah. So but you also. So I'm not.
Wow.
This is going to sound ridiculous. I'm not saying go on a journey with them and rob stores.
Got it.
What I'm saying is this kid is risk seeking. So what can they do that's healthy risk? I think we talked about this, or was it a talk I did about like why people take risk? We did, didn't we? We did a risk taking.
Yeah. We've done not risky kids.
Yeah, but anyway, just talking about no, because it's me going sidetracked. But there's lots of different reasons. There's 3 different reasons why kids risk seek. But I'll figure out what episode it was and put it somewhere. But they're seeking risk for purpose, for mastery, for thrill, all of that stuff. Like some kids will do it because of safety. They have to be risky to feel safe, and they have to have big responses and be violent and stuff because they've been hurt when they haven't been, and they haven't developed coping mechanisms how to deal with conflict or how to get out of those experiences. And how do we realise that this kid is seeing that as a form of mastery, as a form of belonging and all that stuff, and give them opportunities that are slightly more healthy, slightly less risk taking, including like if you've got a kid that you like, how do we go and pay for them to do something really fun and set that up? And then we might actually, because this person's obviously a phenomenal community member and good at guiding really vulnerable kids, how do we also bring that other kid in? So they've got a social relationship with another kid who might be homeless or in residential placements and all that stuff, and go take them go-karting, like I'm just riffing. And saying like that. And it's actually okay if they swear. It's okay if they stuff around a bit. It's obviously not okay if they are rude to other people or, steal or stuff like that. But how do we have a little bit of flex around it?
I would just say as well, this person articulated this question with everything into resilience and all the examples. If they haven't listened to the Bad Kids episode on Stand By Me, it's really, really cool. And there is a risk-taking episode we've done, Billy. I just can't remember the movie.
Is it Indiana Jones?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was Indiana Jones.
Yeah, Last Crusade.
Yeah, because how do we want kids to be risk takers?
Yes.
Yeah, so that one is really helpful because it's the big thing. It's the reason why kids get into cars with people that don't drive. It's, that don't have their licenses and drive. They're risk seeking. Yeah. And this kid is seeking identity. Every kid cares more about having social connections and relationships than being good. Once again, going back to moral development stuff. That's just they want to have a sense of connection.
Amazing. Billy, that's all the longs.
Amazing. Let's do this. I can't remember what order, but phenomenal questions. But let's do this. I want to do the last one. So maybe...
What do we call this section, Billy, for new listeners?
Well, this is kind of advice, perspective, and there's some really important stuff here. But I think I should read the first one.
Go for it.
This podcast is about giving voices to everyone in the community, and this is me demonstrating that.
Okay.
Because it's an important one.
Okay, nice.
Hi, Dr. Billy and Nick. I wanted to start by thanking you for the utterly brilliant podcast. I'm super passionate about creating spaces and communities in which children can safely grow, and also particularly about healing from trauma. As the child of 2 social scientists and someone who grew up in the home education community, I probably have quite a different take on parenting to most people. But every time a subject that comes up that I get a bit anxious about, such as timeout and particularly resilience, you respond in such a beautiful way that feels so right to me. Not sending a kid away on their own as punishment, and particularly not making resilience the child's responsibility when and after experiencing trauma. One of my many dislikes about the messed up way in which we interact with people in the world. I want to pre-warn you, although you've probably already figured it out, that I can be quite soapboxy. So can I. I don't necessarily think that you don't know what I'm about to soapbox about. I just feel there's a mild gap, totally understandable in your pod. I love the work you're doing with schools, Dr. Billy, and I think that the schools you're often talking about sound absolutely awesome. But I would also like to validate for anyone who's going through a really tough time with a school that sometimes they can be really shit. A lot of schools struggle to support all their students. Standardisation and inflexibility mean that many students are falling through the cracks, particularly students from diverse backgrounds. Some schools have written into their policy that they don't address bullying and that it will build resilience for the kids to sort out for themselves. Sometimes teachers bring their own beliefs about creating resilience that cause a lot of harm to children. What we are calling school refusal has skyrocketed. I'd like to say that a lot of the time the problem is not the child, and slowly building their capacity to return to school is not the solution. The problem is the school. In recent years, the home education community has been growing. A lot of this growth comes from what we call accidental homeschoolers, or people who began homeschool education because their children were either falling through the cracks or being traumatised by the school system. And you're right. Resilience does not occur while you're within the place where you're being traumatised. Resilience cannot occur until the situation has been changed and the trauma has been healed or softened. I hear stories, see families every day. I mentor a boy who spent 1.5 years in the school system. 5 years later, he's still struggling. I also hear the stories of amazing healing that took place once the child was taken out of school. Children who slowly and some who suddenly began to thrive. Children who had been bullied and not been supported by the school. Neurodiverse children, often dyslexia, autism or ADHD. Children who had been seriously struggling in schools that had not gone anywhere near supporting them. So I get that home education is not always an option, but for anyone going through the often isolating, dividing experience, having a child who is really struggling at school and the school is not supporting you, I'd like to say that what you're going through is okay. There is nothing wrong with your child and everything wrong with a system that isn't able or willing to support them. When the world is piling in about how you should be fixing your child, it can seem a very lonely place indeed. I'd like to gently suggest that maybe your kid doesn't have school refusal. Maybe the school is the problem here. And the onus should be not on your child to build resilience and get back to school. Resilience is not possible in a traumatizing situation, in a traumatizing space. So I'm really sorry about the long email, and I know I get very soapboxy there. It's just that the dialogues and discourse that are circulating around the school refusal and resilience are almost completely one-sided and almost never mention any idea other than to get the kid back to school. I'd like to open another possibility. Totally fair if you don't read this out, of course. Thank you so much for all the work you do. The way you talk about supporting kids just makes my heart hurt for all the people you can't reach. Dr. Billy, you're utterly amazing with all the work you do. I'm sorry to hear it's driven by trauma though, and I hope you can balance it with your life and needs well enough. Nick, you're utterly amazing in the community. You seem to create the way you think so deeply about these things and care so much for your kids and everyone around you. Thanks again. P.S. If anyone is wanting to look into home education, there are numerous networks around the country to help out. Just type home education or homeschool and the state you live in, a Facebook group, you'll find something. Amazing, which is really important because, sometimes the kids do need to move school, and I think every school's trying, but often they're not resourced well enough and things like that.
Yep. Second one, Billy. Hello, Nick and Billy. I love your podcast, and like many other listeners, find myself applying the knowledge and practices you suggest in my daily life as a parent to a 6-year-old. I also recommend your podcast to anyone who will listen to me rave about it. I'm sure I will write again in the future with a question, but wanted to send an email today to say that one of the aspects I most appreciate is listening to two men talk deeply, compassionately, and with so much vulnerability. I'm a woman and have had countless conversations with other mums about parenting and how to best support our children, parents, and ourselves on the journey. I have attempted, but had considerably less success going in depth with dads about parenting. I'm raising a boy. For now, that is how he identifies, but of course that may change. And I notice all the time how different the exterior messaging is about what emotions are okay for him to express versus the girls around him. My husband and I do not use any language about toughening up or that nonsense, as we want him to feel the full range of emotions throughout his life. We are absolutely in crisis of toxic masculinity and rage as the only outlet encouraged in men, which has created a world where women, myself included, are depressingly used to being depressionally used to being scared of men, and where men are harming themselves, other people, and destroying the very planet we share with their restrained and dangerous behaviour, fueled by the lack of access to their vulnerability and being able to connect with sadness and fear in a useful way. Listening to the two of you talk about parenting with the love and care that you do is every bit as valuable as the actual details of the topic and advice that you give. We receive so much healing simply from how you speak with each other. This is a long way to getting to my suggestion. Some of my favourite parts of the pod are when you, Dr. Billy, read a question or response and feel so deeply that you get a bit choked up. Even though you have said many times that we want to encourage our children to feel everything, I can almost always hear your own conditioning coming out when this happens, as you tend to apologise to Nick for getting so emotional. Nick usually says something like, "No worries," which obviously comes from kindness, but I would ask you both to lean into these scenarios. Billy, stop apologising for being emotional, since that tends to suggest that there is something wrong about you either feeling so deeply or openly expressing it through your voice. Instead, please use those moments to acknowledge yourself as someone who cares so much, and how sometimes it is uncomfortable to feel deeply, but it is who and what you are, and that is a gift to all of us. And Nick, please consider saying something that could also come from the well of kindness and love that you have for your friend. You wouldn't agree that he needs to apologise for visibly demonstrating emotion. Perhaps something like, "Thank you for being you and caring so much. We can hear it in your voice." This would be a beautiful demonstration of men both feeling and responding to big emotions in more supportive and inclusive ways, and we desperately need that in our world. Ultimately, I'm thanking you both for sharing yourselves with us, along with the information, and lovingly encourage you to show us how you stay with the vulnerability when you have big feelings. Thank you for all that you are and do.
Yeah, amazing. It's beautiful, example of the podcast is stronger because of the people that are guiding us. And and I'm going to try really hard to do that because it's such a good point. I can be better than I am at that. And that's how you send us feedback. It helps us get better.
Agreed.
It's beautiful. So I don't know about you. I just thought that was really helpful.
Yeah.
A really practical thing we can do, because I apologize for it and I shouldn't.
And I say no worries.
Well, they're right. It comes from a well of kindness. But I'm just a really emotional person, and I should lean into that. I'm just wiped a tear off my face just then.
Yeah, it's okay to get upset, mate.
Yeah, and they're right. We should be doing that. I try really hard raising a boy, and I should not be apologising for being emotional about something that brings me so much joy, which is being able to I wish I could give everyone the ability to, feel the sense of mastery I do in sharing what I'm trained in and what I do every day broadly. Imagine it's just a phenomenal experience to me.
You're doing it.
Yeah, I get so overwhelmed by it. And I tell the doom and gloom because I also have an answer out of it. Yeah. And I feel so lucky that I've been given the skills that I have, but have put, 14 years of education, of tertiary education into learning this stuff. And I get the privilege of meeting all these kids, and then I get to share their stories in a way that honours them.
Yeah, but so much goes through you, Billy. You're
I feel all of it.
You're not a bottleneck, but so much of the podcast, of patience, of your work, of emails and messages, you're only physically small capacity this much, and two small children.
Totally, and a partner who does everything. And she works some weeks 84 hours of rostered hours, and I feel shame and guilt about that I'm not helping her more. But this podcast and me only exists in this way because of her, because of you, because of the Guiding Grown Minds board, and because of the amazing PCP community that exists all over the world. And the person who said thank you, it's all I have to give. They just give me a lot. I almost every day get emotional about it in an email that comes through, and I like I said to you, I feel bad that I can't answer more of them or read more. And Yeah, and I'm trying very hard now not to say sorry for being emotional.
It's okay.
Let me read the
Okay.
third one.
Right.
Just
Go for it.
um,
Do you want me to read the third one?
No.
I can read the third one, and then you can read the fourth one.
No, I just want to do the last one.
Sure.
Because this is a warm one, a beautiful one, and a bit of a funny one. But hello, Nick and Billy. Just a quick share. Take 5 minutes out of your day on your head and pop on your headphones. This will make you feel good. Listen to the song "Send Me on Your Way" by the Rusted Roots. Do you know that song?
No,
You'd know it.
I'd probably know all of that. Yeah,
it's a beautiful song. I just want to hold your hand, and I feel this song is something you're both about. I was in the supermarket with my 4-year-old daughter. That was an absolute meltdown, not being allowed to buy a skirt from the shops. I could feel the eyes looking at me from the other shoppers and my anxiety rise. But it was like Nick and Billy's voice started in my ears and placed a warm hand on my shoulders. All I could see within was my daughter's body in tears as she was saying, "I want you to hold my little hand," which is the lyric. So I did. I just sat there in the aisle with her and hold her hand, work through the emotions and not take on others' judgments. I felt like you've imparted so much wisdom, and now you can be both sent on our way to a better future. This future is not just for us, but everyone we come in contact with. Every step is on the right path. Love you guys. Beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Okay, 4. To the Dr. Heineken.
To the doctors.
To the Doctor's Heineken. There's a tip below with reference to a tool I used as an ASN teacher. ASN?
Sorry, this is so the tool I'm going to have to put out, but no, they're a special education teacher in Scotland.
Okay, cool.
Which will make sense.
Which are really powerful for building context around a young person's resilience and the factors affecting it. But first, I wanted to say something to you, Dr. Billy. Something you said from the resilience episode really sat with me. The idea that your phenomenal contribution to a better world might be maladaptive strategy at times because your self-worth can become dependent on it. That really resonated with me in a way that now my own trauma has motivated my career in education with learners that have additional support needs and trauma. I want to say something to you that I forgot to say all too often to myself, but we absolutely deserve to hear. The world is a better place because you are in it. Even if the podcast was shit, that would still be true. If you had never married your wife, if you had never had kids you depend on, if Nick if Nick didn't have you as a pal, if you weren't a doctor and you never supported a vulnerable wee person to live their best life, you would still be making the world a better place by being in it. Frankly, I'm bloody glad you did all those things because your work has made such a huge impact on me personally, professionally, and as a parent. But that value is, as you said in the episode, transcendent and generous. It goes above and beyond, and you could can it all tomorrow, and it would not diminish your value. Thanks for existing. I'm glad to share this planet with you. So to the title of the email, you have a tool in Scotland education healthcare called the Resilience Matrix, a fairly simple framework with 4 quadrants that helps adults who know or support a child to detail the positive and negative factors impacting a young person's resilience. Resilience mirrors vulnerability, adversity mirrors protective environment. I have found that often educators or other adults in childcare, while seeking consequences, might choose to target something that, with reflection, is one of, if not the only protective factor in a child's resilience, laying out the risks that the protections in front of us can give us such a tangible picture of the world. A wee person experiences and hopefully can motivate us to address the risks and build the support to foster meaningful resilience. This link is all far better than the
link says it all far better than I would.
It's a tool I think we could all use more. Even as parents, perhaps there is room for a tool like this to lay out what our wee ones need from us. Thank you again for all that you do. If a GP is the most valuable doctor in the health network, you are a close second. Can't wait for Nick to get the honorary doctorate. It's got to be coming soon, surely. Springfield University, maybe. Best.
Amazing. So very quickly, what that person just gave me, we should give to our kids and give to all those in our lives. You are not defined by the success of the relationships you have. You are enough in who you are. It's a beautiful thing to give to me.
Yep.
If you want to find that tool, I'll think about a way to share it, but it is amazing. If you look up Scottish Education Resilience Matrix, you'll find papers on it and research and things about it. Okay,
Right.
Last one. Hi, Dr. Billy and Inspirational Nick. I've been listening to the podcast for a few years now, but yours is one of the only ones I'm able to listen to while running. The countless podcasts I've tried to embrace on runs just never keep me engaged, and eventually I'm more focused on the struggle than what I'm listening to. I feel extremely blessed to have found your podcast after seeing a reel on Instagram, and I'm happy to say I've shared your podcast with anyone who will listen. I'm not 100% sure of my purpose for sending this email other than to say just a massive thank you, but also to show you both how much impact you've had on my life, and I'm sure many others. My partner and I found out we were expecting our first child early this year, and naturally we're overjoyed with excitement, but also scared shitless. As a teacher, I'd already listened to a few of your episodes for a little bit of professional and personal development. I'm currently doing my Masters in Child and Adolescent Mental Health and Wellbeing, so your podcast has helped me gain clarity on so many of my assignments. I owe my marks to both of you. Before falling pregnant, my partner and I had spoken about what we'd consider our approach to parenting, but once we found out we were going to be parents, it was the real deal. I sent your podcast to him, and yours was the first podcast that he actually took the time to listen to. He's more of a fishing podcaster. We spent the next 13 weeks playing catch-up, listening to and unpacking your episodes. We were always genuinely excited to listen to the next one. I kept flagging ones I knew I'd need to revisit when the bubs graced us.
Yeah, I'll get it.
With his presence. Sadly, life had a different plan for our family, and we eventually found out our baby had stopped growing. One of the most devastating days of our lives was hearing that the baby we already loved so much no longer had a heartbeat.
I'll pick it up, mate.
We never get to live out our dreams we'd been fantasizing about for months. My partner is a defence member and is currently away for 3 months, so I've had a lot of time to sit, reflect and mourn our loss. I stopped listening to your podcast for some time because it felt silly. Even though I'd listened to it before being pregnant, it was now just a constant reminder of what could have been. One day I was having an extremely emotional day when I was constantly experiencing anxiety attacks and questioning the purpose of it all. In that vulnerable moment, my phone alerted to me of a new episode. I listened to it and it calmed my nervous system straight away. I was reminded of the calming nature of your voices and the vulnerability both of you show, which made me once again feel such a deep connection to you both. I instantly broke down, but it was a different cry. It was a cry of hope and gratitude. The tears kept coming, but it was almost like they were freeing me from the pain and suffering I was going through. I felt connected. I felt seen. So thank you for seeing us. Everyone is struggling for all the different reasons. Thank you for being our voice and sharing your stories. Thank you for inspiring those who are having a tough time. Thank you for being the calm in my storm. You will forever be the voices in my head pushing me to be better. With love, from a forever listener. Yeah, that's probably the most emotional episode maybe we've ever done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope that in putting that out in the world, it helps build some connection between all of us and helps some people that aren't in the resilience phase, they're still in the healing phase, and it's okay to not be resilient and to just be healing.
Yeah. That's a massive contribution from that listener. I didn't know that was coming, to be honest. I hadn't read that final one.
It's not your fault I sent you the
No.
questions at 6
I just
a.m.
hadn't read the final one. That's really tough. That's so tough.
Yeah, what a phenomenal human, and PCP is stronger for having you a part of that community.
Yep, absolutely. Okay.
We will have our final next episode coming out. The clue to try and lighten the mood for the next movie is Nobel Prize.
Nobel Prize. Okay.
See what you can do with that, considering everyone gave me a hard time for the last one.
Last one a bit easy.
I think you got it as I was saying it. Nobel Prize.
I don't think it's this, but I'll tell you off air what I think it could be.
Yeah, first one through, we'll send a book if that's a that's a prize. Beautiful,
right.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks,
for
Billy. It
journeying
was
with me.
awesome. Sorry, I feel like I'm rushing us, and I am, and I'm apology for
No,
that.
because you've got a day job like me that we need to rush to. So.
I appreciate everyone's contributions. We obviously love doing this, and we hope hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks, guys.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. And I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.